Before we get into this, I have a quick announcement to make. Myself and Arsenal YouTube superstar Bavs14, along with tactical whiz George Voutsas, who also appears on the Different Knock podcast, have teamed up to create the Canon podcast. You can see clips from the full show on the YouTube channel, and you can also hear the whole show and get access to private live streams where we'll take your questions and calls by signing up to the Patreon. Nothing's changing on the Different Knock, it's just there for you if you're interested, and I hope you enjoy it. I have a theory about Alexander Zinchenko. But before I tell you it, I want to make two things extremely clear. Number one, Zinchenko is an extraordinary footballer with a very unique skill set that I love. And number two, I'm in no way asking Zinchenko to be dropped from the team or sold. I look forward to the comments that completely ignore that. I, like a loser, often find myself wandering around from task to task in the house or out and about, thinking about how Arsenal can improve. And considering you watch niche YouTubers make long analytical videos about Arsenal, maybe you do too. And at the moment, I found myself watching the best teams in the world as they play the latter stages of the Champions League and compete right at the top of their respective domestic leagues, and I can't help but wonder how we can reach that level consistently. It's hard to get our heads around change. We have all sorts of cognitive biases that keep us safe and boxed in our thinking, like the availability heuristic that keeps us overestimating the importance or relevance of information that we have access to, or status quo bias that tends to sway us away from change. In less verbose language, we might think, it's working, we're heading in the right direction, why change anything more than we need to? But the reality is, we've already seen so much evolution over Arteta's time in charge, and we will continue to. We've moved through formations, seen key players change position, and seen more subtle shifts in play principles and dynamics. There is a precedent for continual change, and I think it's naive to think that we won't see changes beyond just personnel this summer and moving forward. So, let's think about it. Zinchenko has come into the team and been a complete revelation. His progressive passing numbers are off the charts, he's very secure in possession, and his counter-pressing, ability in the air, and leadership have been some of the key foundations of Arsenal's success this season. It's also one of the most obvious evolutions since last year, as our left-back is inverted into midfield in the 2-3 or 3-2 shape in build-up, which we didn't see last season. However, I look at those best teams in the world, and I see growth potential in Zinchenko's position to play a different way at times, and to get us up to their level in every game. And that's the key thing, at times. In the last 5 games, we've seen teams all predominantly attacking down their right, our left, Zinchenko's side. Sometimes it's a slim difference, sometimes it's pronounced, but it's consistent. And across the season, you see that playing out too. Not always, but as a general rule. And it's not like that's where we're playing and therefore where the turnovers would be. In fact, we take a slim majority of our attacks down the right-hand side at home and a bigger majority away from home on the other side of the pitch. Teams are choosing to target that side. And it makes sense. If I was scouting Arsenal, I'd probably encourage my right winger to target that space in behind Zinchenko, as he's simply not there at times on the transition and is the weaker defender compared to White. And I'd ask my midfielders to put balls into that area. And as a consequence, we've been conceding a lot of goals down our left-hand side. In those 5 games mentioned, Madueke's goal, Bowen's goal, and Firmino's goal were all built up down our left. We've conceded from build-up on the right in that time just once, Salah's goal, which ended up being scored from the left anyway. We've also been caught out early down our left, like against Bournemouth and nearly against Leeds at home. No one is at fault for this particularly. It's just the way we set up, and you have to accept that no matter how you set up, you will leave yourself vulnerable somewhere because you don't have 15 men on the pitch. Even with our best pure defender, Gabriel, on that side, and Xhaka still helping out on the left more than Ødegaard on the other side in comparison, despite his more advanced role this season, we're still vulnerable there. Zinchenko has been individually at fault too, against Madueke and Trent in particular recently, and he knows, as he said in this interview. Different teams ask different things of you, and with the potential for a team to play over 50 games in a season, you need different ways of approaching certain games against teams with certain strengths, and everyone can still get their share of minutes. Even just for the sake of injuries and loss of form, you do need different approaches. And ultimately, this is a weakness at the moment. It's small in the grand scheme of things, and not our biggest weakness, but it is a weakness, in my opinion. And when we're competing with nigh on perfection, we have to do something. Which is why I wonder if we need to switch things up at left back in certain games. I'm not sure how Arteta does that, or if he does that, but I am sure that in Arteta's ideal version of things, we're not playing the same 11 players for 38 league games. So my question is this: can the left back be interchangeable depending on what we need? One option is this. Man City, who, let's face it, are the benchmark at the minute, have had a great deal of success since switching to Nathan Ake and John Stones as their fullbacks in their back four, all in air quotes, obviously. These guys are what I would call proper defenders. Great 1v1 and really know how to defend space. Both are capable of rolling around into a 3 and stepping into midfield, and you don't lose much on the ball. I would say Zinchenko is better on the ball, but these guys stabilise you. They provide a platform, cut off the defensive frailties, and you can see in Man City's results that they've been crucial to their season. I absolutely love Nathan Ake, by the way. I think he's one of the best defenders in the league. And if you want my analysis on how I think adding someone like him to our backline might take us to the next level, and how I think that could be Jakub Kiwior, you can check out the bonus content to this video on Patreon or by signing up to be a channel member by clicking join below to get that and loads of other benefits for just £3 a month. Zinchenko isn't that. He's not the centre-backy full-back profile. He wants to cut through you, he wants to progress and be involved. He doesn't love defending, and his defensive numbers are actually pretty poor, all things considered. But that's okay. We know he's realistically a midfielder playing at fullback, and I imagine he would have been a midfielder for someone like an Arsene Wenger, who we know liked him. So do we need a taller, stronger, more centre-backy type left-back for games where we need to focus a bit more on defending? Someone in a Nathan Ake mould? Is that player Kiwior? I think it could be, but only Arteta will answer that. However, this quote was very interesting to me. You may lose something behind the ball and between the lines, but you gain something further back. There's always a trade-off. If that's not what Arteta wants to do, then I propose a different option. Man City are also blessed because they're able to invert their fullbacks on both sides. Until Cancelo went, they had Stones, Sergio Gomez, Cancelo and Rico Lewis, all of whom could take turns coming in on different sides, right or left, into the 3-2 or 2-3 from fullback. Let's say you're up against a tricky right winger, but don't want to lose progression behind the ball. Could you place a more defensively minded left back, let's say a Kiwior for now, and sit White down for a game to bring in almost a Zinchenko analogue on the other side that you get from the market? Or could White be that progressor in that role, even more inverted than he is right now? You lose his combinations on the overlap with Saka and Ødegaard, but you always lose something. I'm also not averse to Zinchenko having a more advanced role in certain games. Try it. Why not? We haven't seen it yet, of course, but we hadn't seen Xhaka in that role until this season, and you'd have been laughed at last summer for suggesting Xhaka could have done the job he's done this year. Zinchenko plays further forward for his country, and there's a lot more precedent for it to happen. With a more physical, dominant right 8 to balance him out, I wonder if it might work. All of this is conjecture, of course, but that's half the fun. It's all a delicate balance, as without Zinchenko at left back, we are definitely less fluid and progressive. And right now, he is in our best 11. But that small weakness remains against the top teams, in my opinion. Maybe Arteta doesn't see it as a weakness, or he does, but believes that Zinchenko's qualities outweigh the possible downsides, and is expecting Gabriel to step up in a different way over the next 2 seasons. The one thing I am sure of is Arteta will stop at nothing to ensure we are as close to perfect as can be, and I personally think we have growth potential here. It's a challenge, but an exciting one, if we can get it right. To recap, centre-backy left-back, Zinchenko further forward, inverting right back, or a combination of all 3, and possibly more. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm sure you will. By the way, in my assessed video for Zinchenko, I said this. I'll leave you with this. Zinchenko once made a rap music video. It's gold. Go watch it. And I promise you, if we win the league with him in an Arsenal shirt, I will recreate every single moment of it. If you ever needed more motivation for us to win the title, there it is.